Yo, 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 welcome to Crate 808. Today we have a very special guest in the house. We're talking to the guy from the New York City Gritty Committee who's bringing very contagious raps to smack your whole team toothless and leave the party with a mass amount of hookers, a man who has the rawness to restore your calmness and tell your favourite rapper to go eat a bag of baby ticks. It's the incomparable Pharoahe Monch, man.
Peace, man. What's good with you?
Man, we are truly blessed. All the listeners, myself, man, yeah, thank you for coming in, man. Blessing us, man.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All-time great, man. First of all, how are your energy levels, man? We went to your gig last night.
Good, man. It was massive show. It was super energy. Crowd felt dope. And I just had a cup of coffee, so I'm super hyped right now.
Do you know what? That gig, I've been seeing you for time now, right? And we went last night and we weren't holding up the wall, so we weren't missing the point. But we were like, I've moshed out bare times. I'm just going to chill here. Even like halfway through, I was like, my neck's still breaking. Like, I need to go in.
Right.
What I found amazing, and I know I'm veering away from the normal questions, but what I found amazing, man, is your voice, bro. Like, are you still practicing? Like, are you still vocal practicing and stuff, like with your vocal cords and stuff?
I actually, I looked at the show last night as like some Super Bowl shit. Like, I practice up until the point of the show. We rehearsed a little bit, and I actually went through different stages just to like manage everything. Like, okay, I've been in the studio, I don't have anything going on, so let me just target this show and like eat right and land a day in advance and go to the gym.
Man, it's paying off though, bro.
Yeah.
Your voice was like going across the hall. Like, either the sound system's amazing, but I've been there a few times. It's decent, but I was like, wow, man. Yeah, Pharoahe's voice is just like killing it right now. But I'm gonna get done in if I don't. All the fans always ask me the first question I should ask is, Pharoahe, man, what's the least hip hop thing you've done in the last 24 hours?
Least hip hop thing I've done in the last 24 hours. I was gonna take a pic of it or video of it. In the hotel room, there's one of these showers with all of the nozzles, like the forward-facing nozzles, the overhead nozzles, and then I got in a little too prematurely, and it was hot as hell, and water was shooting all over the place. So I was like dodging and ducking all of the shower streams and shit, and I thought, man, this is
not hip hop.
This is not hip hop at all.
better hot than cold. I don't know. Which one is better? I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, the cold would do me in, I have to say. But so I'd start at the beginning with you, man. Back in the day, Queens. Just tell me, man, how did the world of hip hop even enter your soul? Like, how did it even come about?
Well, I always say, fortunately, coming up, I came up through hip hop culturally, not trying to get involved in the music industry, but more or less like seeing it evolve from the breakdancing and the jams in the park. And, I was just a little shorty, like Nas said, just going to the jams, like, wow, you could hear it from like blocks away. And it was just so exciting to be walking towards that area and to not be able to see what was going on, but to be able to hear the pulsating of the bass and the drums. And it just put an energy in the air when you got in there, and it was people surrounding the turntables and everything, watching the DJs and the MCs. And so I studied that and I watched that and was watching it grow, as well as I went to art school and came up in art culture, graffiti culture, just the whole styling of, the explosion of people doing like graffiti and designs on the back of jean jackets. And I was like, yo, I got to be a part of this culture as it explodes, not just from an MC standpoint, but I was literally watching something come to fruition that came from the city, the people involved, the writers and the dancers and the breakers. And I was like, I have to be involved in this. So I say that to say that's what Queens was when I was coming up. And it helped me because it let me be a part of something that I take seriously still. When I go into writing records, I still think about it like this is not just about the individual. It's about upholding a standard still.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you remember there was an actual moment where you went from like spectator, sitting and watching and taking it in, to actually actively participating in the culture? Do you remember there being a moment when that happened?
Definitely. Queens was fierce. Like, it was like crew battles. So it was always like competition. Again, going back to Nas, it was like when he said that line, you know, he was young and he was too afraid to grab the mic. It was like really competition like that throughout the boroughs, throughout all the boroughs. Like, and again, when you study and analyze the psychology behind that, that alone says I need to be ready before I get in front of these people.
Yeah.
And so that helps you grow as an artist as well. And so that's what me and Prince Poe did. We went to the lab and worked with our DJ in the basement, and we didn't come out of there until we thought we were ready. You know, I would take tapes of recordings we were doing back to my house and listen to them and think, damn, this is the worst shit I've ever heard in my life. You know, like, damn. So before I let anybody else hear it, you need to believe that it's pretty dope. And I was lucky enough to have the fortitude to hear that the shit was whack as hell, you know, in the beginning. And so we worked on our craft and worked on our craft too. My DJ was like, yo, like, this is now becoming as good as anything I'm hearing on the radio or any of the crews. And, you know, we see, and that's when we were like, we're ready.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, craft in hip hop is like, you need your 10,000 hours or whatever that saying is. It surely pays off with the greats, including yourself. So was it your DJ who gave you your first validation that, shit, this is good? Like,
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Damn, that's crazy.
Another thing to throw into the mix of that was no recording equipment. So we were learning in routines.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much most times with one microphone. So he would be spinning records and we would say, okay, let's start the routine. Go into the scratch a chorus. Okay, you're first. Prince is second. What's the chorus? Nonstop. Learn it like it's a show. Like, so we were being trained on some A&R gritty because we didn't have the tools to say, well, let's go back and edit that and record it again. If you fucked up, it was like,
you fucked up.
Yeah, the total tape is just, you just ruined the whole tape, you know.
You catching a beat down.
Yeah. We could probably stop like in between songs sometimes and like do an edit, but nah, man, it was like, you got to learn this whole like 60 minutes of this tape.
That is ruthless, though. That is ruthless. That is not today's standard at all. The edit button is so easy.
Exactly.
Like, you know, that's crazy, man. I never knew that. So yeah, it's interesting. So like when you were talking about the process, the creative process, your shit is so mad creative. Like your rhyming patterns. Like we were watching you yesterday, and my mate just turned to me. He was like, you know, we take this shit for granted. I was like, really? He was like, yeah. Like listen to that verse. There's 4 or 5 different ways Pharaoh goes in his verses like you do. So I just want to know about the writing process and stuff like that. So specifically, I just want to know what kind of creative you are. Like when you're there, are you patient? Are you dwelling on a subject, or are you like, you know what, I just need like an hour and I'm going to bang this out? I just want to know like what your approach was.
It's definitely like filmmaker style in terms of I could be inspired by anything and everything. Movies, shows, conversation, the news, the world, life, my life. And so when I approach a subject matter, a song, it's just like, obviously beats. I left that out because I think it's obvious. You get a track and you're like, oh, I got a vibe to just do bars over or whatever. But whatever it is, I approach it like a director in the sense that I know what I want to see and I know what I want these scenes to look like. I know how I want the opening to begin. I know what I want to translate. I hope you get when you listen. So I'm constantly like going back saying, does this work that way? And so now, you know, years later, I'm not opposed to, you know, listening back to a song and going in to edit it and going to cutting, you know, things landing on the cutting room floor that it's just like, I didn't need this scene or these many words as the metaphor. What's the best way to get the point across on this music is key. So yeah, I let things marinate. I'm fortunate enough to do that. I've always been one who was like quality over quantity, obviously with only 4 solo albums, you know, 3 since Internal Affairs, you know, but as we push forward, speaking of which, I want to release a bunch of music because I have a lot of gems sitting around. Aside from the new project that's done, I just want to release joints that I have with like some amazing artists that I won't say, but just crazy features that I'm like, yo, you would mash this.
Bro,
yeah.
What?
I call them what do we call them? Like just standalones or like, you know, I just want to let it go. You know, usually you would look for a project to make with it, but I'm just like, just put it out. So there should be a lot of music coming out 2020.
Man, we are here for that. Any Pharoahe project's always interesting to me. Your approach to everything. You said filmmaker there, and it feels like to me your creative avenues when you were a kid weren't just music, because you're doing performance art on the stage. You're like, the videos are always thought about, the covers. I mean, what other avenues did you explore as a kid? Like, was it all music?
Yeah, I grew up being an artist. Like, I was drawing in grade school. Like, the teacher was like, you're the class artist. We need, you know, draw a turkey for Thanksgiving and put the shit up on the front of, you know.
Oh, my God. So, yeah.
So I was the dude who was, like, cutting feathers and doing all types of crazy art projects for the class. And even in grade school, colleges, universities would come to my school and they would pick kids to take on, like, collegiate trips. It was like arts and crafts. So my brain was always being expanded, and I always had a love for like knowledge on the art side.
Yeah.
And so I wound up going to the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan. Prodigy went there. Kwame went there. Percy P went there.
Damn.
Fable the Dancer went there. So many people who are instrumental in New York City hip hop wound up going to the school. But in the school, though, it just opened my mind even more to what things should look like, feel like, sound like, you know, because I was introduced in the culture, and the culture had like all these elements to it. Fashion and dress and feel, talk, swagger, walk, whatever it was, you know, you wanted to implement that into the whole picture. So, and going into, you know, visuals, you know, my mind is there too, because I'm writing in a visual way. So I wanted to be portrayed in that same way. And early on, I don't think directors, you know, they marginalized a lot of hip hop videos. So, you know, we're just getting into that zone where we could take it wherever we want to take it.
So it's interesting when you say in there about like visually looking at things, because your style is so, you can't really compare anyone to you because you do a lot of different things. I was wondering, like, inspiration wise, was there artists where you're like, you know what, that guy's got it, or like that person, that act, was there someone who inspired you or like influenced you to go that route?
Definitely. So many. And again, it's a collage of artists. In hip hop, again, due to where it was, you have to talk about the context, which is something that gets lost when having these type of discussions. Like when I was coming up, the radio was playing at the same time. G-Rap, Rakim, KRS-One, NWA, Chuck D. You know, there was an array of different vibes. De La Soul, Native, you know, tongue. And I'm like pulling from all that. So just from our source of music, you know, hip hop at the time when they were playing hip hop on the radio, we had an array of different things to be inspired by, as well as, you know, Coltrane and Miles and Hendrix. And in my household, you know, my brothers were playing all different types of music. My pops was into jazz, and you were hearing all these different sounds coming from different rooms. And since I was the youngest, I was molded by that. So it's like, you know, you can't help the vibration of what feels good. And even today, I speak on the fact that they try to, you know, tell artists or tell a group of people targeted what's the age limit for a certain type of music and how you market music. And there's really no age limit, because when I was coming up, you know, I was listening to Marvin and Stevie and understanding it. It wasn't like no specific age that you couldn't listen to something that's really, really, really good and timeless.
I can't imagine being like a 6-year-old and hearing inner city blues. You're going to understand that.
Right.
Like that's, especially if you're from that area or those kind of areas, right? Yeah, I completely get you on the whole age limit. I do think there's the monetization of it, the kind of corporations are probably doing it that way just to target and splinter the audience for themselves. I mean, when I look at when I look at your stuff, you're talking there about family. I'm just really interested with rappers generally. Like when you when you said to your parents and you sat down and your family, you were like, you know what, this is what I want to do. Was there a conversation where you were like,
It was a super pivotal point in my life.
Okay.
Where I was graduating from the high school art and design, about to go into college. And we had just finished, like, it was at the point where my DJ was like, yo, y'all are sick with this. Like, the stuff that y'all are coming up with is bugged, man. Like, I'm really just on par with everything I'm hearing. And I was like, oh, man. So I went and sat with my moms and my pops collectively. And I had the fervor in my heart, you know? And I looked my pops in the eyes and was like, I think I want to give a shot at this hip-hop thing and be an artist. And I really think we could do it. We've been working really hard at it. And I could tell he looked me in the eye and looked through me and looked at my soul and was like, he's dead ass serious, you know. And they didn't say whatever. They gave me a year.
Right.
To land a professional record contract. And they were like, if you could become, you know, professional within that time period, it's all good. It's all gravy. We know this is something you love. Boom, 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 boom. Within that year, me and Prince had signed with like local record label. And then towards the end of that year, we had locked out the deal to do Organized Confusion Records.
Wow. So that lit a fire under your ass, right? Surely.
It definitely, man.
What was your other option? Like, if it doesn't happen, what's your other option?
I was still a creative. Even in those moments, like I was cashing in mad dollars for the summer because we were doing like graffiti characters on jeans, and it was popping in my family, and then people was like coming to the house like paying like crazy dollars. Like I was charging so much money and I was loaning my parents money, like but I always was going to use something artistic to try and make a profession at.
Yeah. That's sick, man. That's sick. I mean, when you're looking at your career then, and you're looking at like, well, actually before that, one thing I did want to ask, Pharoahe Monch, the name is one of the most iconic hip hop names, right? But what was your first hip hop name? Like, did you have like a lot of ways to get to Pharoahe Monch?
I only had two names.
Go on.
So before I started MCing, I was a beatbox, and I was super, super heavy. Okay. And so I called myself the mailbox.
The mailbox.
And people was like, the what? I was like, yeah, the mailbox. I was like, no, bro, that's totally whack. And then even before Organized, we were simply Too Positive, MCs, STP, with the demos. And then we went to Def Jams, and Russell Simmons was like, this is the worst hip hop name ever in the history of hip hop. You have to change this name. What the fuck is STP? And we were like, simply Too Positive. He was like, no. So
he's not having Simply Too Positive on the roster.
So, and you mentioned that, like when you're hit with those challenges, like you really go in and you go back to the lab, and it pushes you. And we was like, we need a name that, you know, more defines where we're going and who we are. And since we were like dibbling and dabbing in different genres, you know, Organized Confusion.
So then Pharoahe, where does Pharoahe Monch come from?
So the Pharoahe Monch.
This is a good story, I know it is already.
So I was a bit of a class clown in high school. As a matter of fact, I was the class clown. So, you know, I try to put a little bit of that personality out there on the socials. But yeah, cracking, joking, making the teachers laugh, like the whole nine, have the whole class just cracking up. And so it was one chick in particular that I would tease all the time and get on all the time. And that summer, right before we went back to school, I went to my lifelong barber to get a haircut. And I had been making money from the graffiti and all that. And so prior to that, my father had been like taking me to get haircuts and telling the barber what to do. So, you know, I feel like I'm a big man now. So I'm like, I'm paying myself. I'll tell you what I want. He was like an old in his 60s barber. And I was like, I want these corners with the lines, with the parts, with the this, with the that. Long story short, he completely fucked my head totally up.
Oh, no.
The worst haircut ever. Shit. Almost in tears, worst cut ever.
Oh, no.
So it's a week, not even a couple of days to school. I'm like, I'll just get a hat. Boom, 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 boom. No problem.
Yeah.
So I'm in class with the hat, and the teacher's like, Troy, what are you doing? There's no hats in class. Take that hat off. And I take the hat off, and the girl I was cracking on all the while turns around. She sees my line, and she starts busting out laughing. And the class turns around, and the class starts laughing at my haircut. And she's like, he looks like a Monchi Chi. And the class starts laughing. And then she does the song, this old cartoon from back in the day. She's like, oh, sorry, Cully. Teacher's laughing, class is laughing.
Teacher's laughing. Oh,
I'm like, holy
savage.
shit. Finally, the joke's on me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Monchi Chi, you know what? I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip it and I'm going to keep it. Monch. I'm going to keep that. The joke's on me. This is how much cracking and joking was so dope back in the days. Like it was no harm. And so I added the Pharoahe later when I got in the group and started like studying like world and Egyptian. And I needed like the dope title in front of my name. So I just threw the Pharoahe there.
I love the fact you just owned it. Like, yeah, I'm just going to own this
Totally
right now.
owned it.
That's wicked, man. Wow, that is a good story. I can't believe the teacher was cracking on you like that. That's awful. Nowadays, imagine that nowadays, man. But so when we're talking about the career then, Pharoahe Monch career, huge. You've gone from obviously Organised Confusion, dropping classics, to Raucous, dropping classics, to doing your own stuff over the last 10, 15 years. I just wanted to know specifically if there was stuff that you would think career highlights for yourself, where you've been like, damn, that's something I'm going to remember.
Man, a couple years back, like 2 years ago, won my first Grammy for a song I worked on the Miles Davis movie with Robert Glasper and Keon Harold. And we worked endlessly on the record. But in the midst of working on the record, I always felt like, I was like, yo, this is some special shit right here in this category. Don Cheadle was in the studio with us, like giving us tips. He knew where it would go in the film. He wanted it to be in the ending credits. And so snuck in that little thing right there and got a Grammy. That felt good.
Damn,
in
definitely,
a way.
man.
And then just recently, man, the achievement of the 20-year anniversary on this record celebrated at the Kennedy Center in D.C. in the States. And they brought Diamond D and DJ Scratch and Lee Stone. They had a Q&A one day, and people like paid to come to the Q&A. And then we had the show the next day with Styles P, M.O.P., Prince Poe, Fonte came through in the historic halls of the Kennedy Center. This album from 20 years ago that's pretty rooted in the underground. And it felt really good. As an artist, I'm always focused on the art, but for that moment, I had to step back and like accept the fact that this record was being commemorated and given its props.
Yeah, man. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
It's like the annals of history, man. That's it. Yeah. And when you talk about that, like, it's interesting when I see like hip hop to where it's morphed again at your show. It was like a really reflective time for me and my mate. We were just standing there because we haven't been to see you for a minute. And we were like, it's amazing where the culture's gone. And I was thinking, shit, man, I've got a little kid. I've got a little boy. He's like two and a half years old. And I was like, damn, like, I'm starting with Dilla with him and a bit of the Roots and Tribe and Della because that's all kind of vibe.
Right.
And then I just started thinking, like, Pharoahe, like, what do I play from Pharoahe? So I would love to ask you, man, for my young boy, if you were to recommend me one of your records or songs that I should play him, which one and why?
I would jump all the way to the Desire record. There's songs on there that I love because I wanted the record to be inspirational, which is why I have the singers on there to create the harmonies, and those frequencies felt very inspirational to me in terms of the gospel aspect. So with songs like Desire and Push, they create a vibe even before you get to the bars or the lyrics of those songs. So to this day, I'll go on social media and ask about internal desire, war, and PTSD. And to my surprise, I'm blown away by how many people were drawn to Desire or were introduced to me through that album. So sometimes when people ask and they're not familiar with the catalog, my solo catalog, I'm like, yo, maybe you should start with that album.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's surprising to me though, because you'd been established by the time Desire had come out.
Right.
So that's interesting because a whole new audience coming into it.
Right.
Mate, I'm all about that. Like someone, like I know a lot of younger people I know got into Tribe from the recent album, the 2017 album.
Right.
And I was like, thank God, like you youngsters now have this and now you can go back and
Incredible.
see what I grew up with.
And we knew that from the era of digging in the crates and picking records. And we knew that because what we were sampling was amazing, but we were like, this is from 72. What the hell? Why is it still so good? And now that this just blew my mind, what other bands was he in? What else did he do? I need all of his music now. And you start doing the research. So we had the understanding that it was possible to make music that stood the test of time, past the point that labels were telling us that this should be a summer fad. And I'm like, no, I'm listening to this James Brown joint right now and I'm totally hyped. Like,
Yeah.
Clyde Stubblefield is keeping timing like a sampler. Like, I just want to rhyme over the record, which is what we did. And you're asking yourself, like, what integrity did they have to bring in string arrangements and do all these things that evoke these emotions? And so we were doing the knowledge and we were getting that in those moments culturally, in the digging, in the crates, and in the era where it was culturally still impactful. And that's what we learned. And, you know, I always, from the beginning, I was like, I want these records to last. I want your son, so to speak, to get of age when he can listen to my stuff and be like, oh my God, what's this record with Talib and Common and the guy who's doing commercials and the film and the thing. Now I got to go back to the, you know what I mean? And it's a fun discovery, and that's what music is supposed to be.
Yeah, and this is the thing about when you're talking about discovery and youth and you talk about integrity. That's really interesting because integrity and reputation for me is a thing as a fan. When I was a kid, like most teenagers, 18, 19 years old, quite ignorant to respecting established figures and being more about the punk or like a punk attitude towards things, being, no, this is the shit I like.
Right.
Fuck that other shit. This is the shit I like. Right. And I remember there was a time, I've met you a few times at your gigs, and this time there was a festival in Hackney Downs in London, and James Brown was headlining. So we got the leaflet, James Brown's headlining. It's like, yeah, I'd like to see James Brown. I'm 19 at this point. Yeah, like, of course, you know, I'd like to see him. But I wasn't like scored up on him. Then I saw on the undercard, there was like the Raucous tent. I'm not sure if you remember this show. The Raucous tent was yourself, Talib, Mos, and we were like, well, we'll go to the Raucous tent, clearly, because we're all Raucous heads, and then we'll just chip and go see James Brown. Mate, right, I'm sorry. We were in the Raucous tent. It's one of the best shows I've ever been to. There's sweat coming off the ceiling. You just absolutely killed. Everyone killed it. And then at the end, I'll always remember, indelible memory in my brain, just see it in there, was you, Mos, and Talib just rapping together with the crowd. And I was like, this is one of my favourite moments ever. I looked at the clock. James Brown's done. I was like, oh, you're joking me. You missed James Brown. But I was like, I don't care. That was the best gig I've been to.
Right.
And then I went to purchase some posters, some merch, and the only thing they had left was like, and I'm not joking, it was about a 15-foot Simon Says Pharoahe Monch poster. And I was like, I think I can get away with that. I think I can put that in my bedroom.
I still got those.
Mate, right?
They only had them here in the UK. They weren't in the States. They were specially made for the UK. They're huge.
Absolutely.
I still got those.
It's so intimidating when I'm bringing someone home to my bedroom to see Pharoahe Monch, 3 different styles of it above my bed, and me be going, it's fine, it's just a really good song, just ignore the massive poster. But I remember seeing you there and meeting you at the festival, and you were so like really, you were just more about the community. You will always have time for your fans. So when we're talking about integrity and like and respect for things, it was like, wow, I regretted not seeing James Brown when I was like 26, 27, going, oh my God. But now I've come back to the other side where I'm like, I'm glad, like, I know I didn't get to see like The Godfather, but I saw that moment at that time when that love was so real. I want my boy to have that. Like, you need that in your, it could be someone who I have no, like, I don't like what you like listen to as kids. They always have different like tastes to myself, but I really appreciate that fact that you guys would always have that respect for your fans, man. That was what I loved. Yeah, man. I'm sure that's how you grew up. Like,
it's still all we have, you know, and especially now as independent artists. all we have. I don't mean it in a negative sense. I mean, it's like I'm super boutique. I'm not McDonald's. I'm a family store, small on the corner. So the customers come in. I'm like, good morning. How are you? I have to be that way because I need them to come back and I need them to tell people, if you're ever in Queens, you gotta go to that Pharoahe Monch store. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. And how do you feel about for indie artists at the moment, like independent artists at the moment? How is the business and culture generally at the moment?
It's thriving, I think. I think what's disappointing is you see people posting right for clickbait in this paradigm. But there is a surgence of good music and good lyricists and people who love what they do, just like the same as when, the 90s, same way. It's good to see that because, the industry tries to trick you into thinking it's just a passing fad still.
That's interesting, man.
1 2 1 2, you know what it is. This your man SKYZOO Sky Zoo live at the borough, and this is the Crate 808 podcast. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, and most importantly, share that love and put your peoples on. Crate 808, one time.
So, because you're here now, I have to talk to you. There was so many songs I want to talk to you about. But I thought we can't. The listeners want Simon Says. We've got to talk about Simon Says because it is the kind of trademark song for Pharoahe. And when you do a gig, it's the thing that it transcends. It's a weird thing. It's like the whole crowd just becomes a weird mass of just like energy. So I understand when I have revisited a lot of articles and interviews with yourself, you started with the beat with Simon Says. Mm-hmm. Could you just tell us the journey you took, like making that track, that classic track?
My best friend was a huge monster movie fan. So was I, and so we used to watch these King Kong, Mothra, Godzilla films, and he was a big music collector as well. He's also first DJ, same dude. And so he goes shopping one day for a bunch of stuff, and he's like, dude, you gotta come down and listen to this CD. It's all our favorite joints is on the CD, soundtrack from the movies. And he's like, you gotta come down and hear this. And that's not even one of the ones he wanted me to hear. It was like the CD was just filled of chock full of goodies and sounds and just dramatic. I'm like, oh my god, this is just amazing. So we got to the Godzilla joint, and my face just dropped to the floor, like, holy shit. I saw it in my head, and I was like, let me get the CD. And then I go down and, loop the 4 beats, loop the 4 bars, put the drums, and I'm just sitting there listening to it over and over and over and over again. Simple as 4 notes, bam, 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 and added the drums, and it's just playing over and over again. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, damn. You know what? I said to myself, as a songwriter and arranger, you can only screw this record up. It has such a vibe to it already, and I was like, you have to tell people. I'm having a conversation with myself, psychological conversation. You have to tell people what to do on this song. These notes don't sound like asking a crowd. It sounds like telling a crowd. What are you going to tell them? What's your motivation? What are you going to say? And then I started to say, imagine you were a host or MC of an event or club, and you go out there to introduce people or talk to the people, and everybody's just kind of like not paying attention, sitting around, leaning on shit, and you're talking, and they're not paying attention to you. What do you say to them?
Damn.
That's the psychology behind the record. And then I was watching a lot of Italian movies as well at the time. That's why it's kind of like, get the fuck up. Has this like voice to it because I was like trying to be in character and shit.
What films are you watching? What Italian films are you watching?
Regular old school ones, Godfather and Goodfellas and all of that type of shit.
That's crazy, man.
So yeah, I also realized that one of the big things with massive records was intros, and it kind of had a built-in intro to it. So, I looped it, took the disc, went to Lee Stone's crib to lay the vocals. We put the intro on, and it's really about the intro setting the whole tone for the record. And as I listen back to like some classic records in general, and some classic hip hop records, they kind of have that build to the intro of the song.
100%. It's the depth of thought and care into that is blowing my mind. That you actually, I mean, it shouldn't blow my mind. It's a classic track. It obviously takes a lot of love and care to make something like that. But to hear you articulate how you did it, that's what makes an artist compared to just a normal person like myself. Like, that's the difference, is to be able to think that way and then translate it. You can think that way all you want, but to have the skills to translate and make it, it just makes me think, like, when you're making an album, say, or a song, or you're making something new, you're ready, right? Mentally, spiritually, you're there. You're in that place where you think, I want to express myself. Do you have like a typical first day? Or is there even a typical first day or a typical first step you make towards making an album?
Yeah. I mean, again, you know, you want to get all the pieces right. And I'm old school, so the art and the photos and all that matters. So it's not just me writing bars over beats. I could get beats and write bars to the end of time. It is a whole thing that I'm trying to create. I still want to create a vibe where if you are that type of person, and I know it's a specific type of person that it resonates with, I want you to listen to the whole project. I want you to embrace what I was going for and get engulfed in the album. And so I write the songs in that way, whether it's going to be a one-off or, you know, something I'm just going to put out there, or whether it's going to be a part of a project. And if it's a part of a project, it needs to fit seamlessly into the whole thing. Else I'm just bothered, which is why I take so much time making records. It's not that I've spent the totality of times in between records making an album.
For sure.
But I just go back to it and tweak something here and put something there and tweak something there.
So is it a matter of, like, when you approach a project, do you jump off with a certain sound you want to go for, or is it the concept or the message, or is it even lyrics? Like, what for you is the driving, like, bang, the force behind it?
It's all of that, but it's the concept. Like PTSD was about my battle with depression, so I needed the music in the beginning to start off creeping and slow, which is like what a day of depression feels like. You're just constantly looking at the clock like, Jesus, when is this day going to go by? It's kind of crawling. So I knew I wanted the tempos to be slower and soulful, but dramatic, so I can express, get my personality in terms of introspectively out, because I'm talking about me and what I've been through for the first time. So that album, for example, you know, I've been a bullet. I've been an unborn baby. I've been all these metaphors, but it was the choice finally to say, who is Pharoahe Monch? You know, so took a minute to really think about what I wanted to talk about in that sense. The depression wasn't happening to me in the moment, so I had to go back to a time that it was, which was crazy. And
it's brave, man. That's a brave thing to do.
And really revisit what it felt like, which is wasn't easy to do because I'm not in that space anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a brave thing, one, to revisit it, and two, to then express yourself and articulate it to masses. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like, yeah, big up, man. Big up on that. Is there like something what's the most like fun and interesting part for you? Like, is there a moment, is it all like that, or is there like one thing where I can't wait to do that?
Man, it's a roller coaster ride, and I think life should be that. I mean, if I could stick to PTSD, just like on the song that I got a song on PTSD with Black Thought, and I had a couple of other artists picked out to be on that song.
Right.
And I sent them the song, and they were like, "Oh hell no, I'm not rhyming on this record. Like, I don't even, like, I'm not going after that."
Right.
And so I'm not gonna say who they are, but when you want specific people to do specific things, like you hear it and you're like, oh, this would be so great if, like, there was only a handful of people, and Black Thought was one of them. And so just to have him on the record and to get his verse back in it, for it to be so amazing, it's like kid in a candy store type of thing. The song's called Rapid Eye Movement. And, you know, not only did I ask him to be on it, I'm like, so here's the concept. I'm going through depression, and it's happening in the future, and I went to a place to have my memories extracted from my head, and they dope me into a dream state, and inside of that dream state, the computers are telling me that I'm not shit and they're in control, and so I need you to help me come get out of that place. He's like, yeah, I got you, bro. Yeah. I'm like, what?
That is sick.
Yeah.
That is sick. And again, it's that filmmaker vibe, man. It's that filmmaker vibe. You've talked about films a few times, generally. Like, it's that cinematic lens. I actually just need to ask you then, like, what are some of your favorite films of like the last few years, or like, let's say decade?
I don't know about favorite, but the one that blew my mind, like, I literally go to movie theaters and I watch them films like they're MCs. So when it's compelling and it's really good, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to go home and write something now. Like, it's inspiring like that. I get the same vibe from Dope Movie. And the movie that did that was the last Road Warrior movie. I forget the name of it.
Mad Max, Fury Road, that one.
The Fury Road, the director is an older director. And I was reading a little bit up on it. And he was like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it my way. And I want to shoot it my way. And just knowing he was an older cat. And just to see some of the shots and the story, I was in the theater like, I quit. This is incredible. Like, he really was moving me emotionally with shots alone, because there's not a lot of dialogue in the film. So the visuals were inspiring.
It's the most Pharoahe Monch film, I think. It really is. When you watch that, you think, yeah, that's that. I don't know why. I just think you could do the soundtrack to that film with ease. It's just like, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's sick. He did a black and white version of that, the chrome version, which is sick.
I got to see that. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, man, definitely. That's good. So yeah, man, let's move it on then. Let's move it on. Let's get it. I mean, again, so much to talk about. But if we're going into like your sound and where do you think it's going to go next? And as an add-on question to that, I wanted to see, like, is there anything in modern music, in modern hip-hop, or modern music generally, that you think is inspiring you in your new sound, or sound you're going to go for?
There's absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely nothing. I've turned my ears off to what's happening in modern hip-hop. That's not a disrespect, because I like a lot of the Migos. I like a lot of new trap joints and high energy joints, and I listen to that stuff and get inspired by arrangement and production as well, but not inspired to do what I'm doing moving forward. There's nothing that sounded like this prior to this project I'm about to release. It's super hard, it's super edgy, it's super dark.
Okay.
And it's purposeful though, and I can't drop any titles, but it's the project. It's my baby. It's the project of a lifetime. It's not technically a Pharoahe Monch project. I recruited and entered into a band called 13, which is a drummer by the name of Daru Jones, who rocked with Black Milk and Slum Village, and goes at the other end of the spectrum with Jack White.
Oh, wow.
And he was Jack White's drummer for a couple of years. So his chops on the rock side is just super, super dope. He rocks with Pete Rock. He's just funky and edgy as well in his approach to drumming.
Sweet.
And a guitarist by the name of Marcus Machado, who's from Harlem, who was named one of Rolling Stone's top 5 young guitarists a couple years ago.
Holy shit, man. This is going to be sick.
So the project is just, it took me a minute because I wanted it to keep all of the hip hop elements that I love in terms of timing to hip hop records that I love by the greatest hip hop producers that you listen to and you're just like, oh man, these drums. And you know, you're the type of person that's like, oh man, this drums, this program, whatever. A lot of times when people did a similar type of mashup, it would lose me because it would be too loose or whatever. But this is it's turned out to be the illest, in my opinion, blend of the genres. And it's super sick. I can't wait for people to hear it. I can't drop any album titles or whatever, but I think my hope is that it moves me into a different space again, and that there's an energy there that I think is new in terms of live performance, that I think people are gonna be like, holy shit.
Mate, you are whetting appetites right now, Pharoahe, man. Like, that's interesting because you always have metal, you always have jazz, you have soul, a lot of different things in your music generally. So I'm looking forward to that, like the next extension of that. And when you're talking about Black Milk there, I just remember my favourite one, that when you guys did Matrix, oh man, on Black Milk, that yeah. There's so many tracks that you've done, like the Fudge Pudge as well, and Mayor and stuff like that. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this to you, because I was the worst writer ever, but Mayor inspired me to like have an alter ego to write this shit, and it was the worst shit ever. Like, it was awful. But I remember my mate, who's quite a good rapper, he was looking at it going, yeah, you know, it's a good idea. But yeah, I remember that was just because I kept playing Mayor over and over and over again. So yeah, moving on to other things then, our usual staple questions we usually ask our guests. Pharoahe, man, you've worked with pretty much everyone, from your Kanye's to your Black Thoughts to your Mos Defs to your Nate Dogg's, rest in peace. Could you name me at the moment like your top 5 MCs, your favourites?
Of all time or right now?
Of all time. Unless you want to drop both. I'd like to hear both, to be fair.
Both are difficult, but of all time, it stays G-Rap, Rakim, Kane, KRS-One, and Chuck D, with LL and Kool Keith, and just for the first album alone, it was just zones on that record that Keith was hitting that was just like insane. And
they're all part of you.
Right.
Like, when you
absolutely
say that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, I want to have KRS-One's diction. I want to pronounce my words like KRS-One. I want to have the thought process to make you think like Rakim. I want to have the ability and the gymnastics of Kool G Rap. I want to have, you know. So I'm like, how do you do that, you know? Yeah. In terms of people picking that out, only like Supernatural was the first one that was like, I could tell you everybody you studied. I hear everything now. I got it.
The diction, though, is so true. Hearing you live and even on record, the way you've definitely thought about how my tongue and how I'm going to use this voice box to say certain words, and that stands apart, man. So yeah, very, very KRS.
Yep. Oh man.
And today's stuff then, like today's MCs, like who you feeling, man?
So today it's definitely Kendrick and Royce and Cole, and there's this kid Makami.
Oh, I love Makami. Yeah.
And your old Droog. I'm a big Droog fan.
He's got your humor, Droog has.
Oh man, his humor is much on another level. We build quite frequently, and I told him like that needs to be a part of his live. Yeah, it's cutting edge, like on like what I've seen from like top dry comedians, live stand-up type shit. I think where he goes on social is going to work live as well. Yeah,
his socials are so funny. Yeah. So that's it, because I can see all those guys, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I can see those guys listening to Stress, and definitely Kendrick for sure. Like, he must have heard that stuff because his own voice changes, just like your guys' voices change all over that album. So it's interesting, those ones you're saying to me, because I feel like they must have heard, or at least have listened to your guys' stuff.
No, you don't. It had nothing to do with me per se, but you don't get that good unless you study and unless you're open to understanding beyond the MC. So to understand beyond Nas and Jay-Z, you have to understand that Jay-Z was a huge Kane fan. And it's just doing the homework.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then when we talk about your master lyricist, GOAT, top 5 all time, like people always say that. So we talk about lyrics. Aside from your own, what lyrics do you wish you'd have written? When you've heard a verse, especially if it's 90s, where you could have been like, damn, I wish I'd written that.
Man, it's so many. So the one that comes to mind off the rip is the new moon rose high in the crown of the metropolis.
Oh my God.
I was like, dude.
You played, right? I have to have a word with your DJ, because he played the intro to that last night, and I was like, I am here for this, let's go. And then bang, switched it like halfway through the verse. I was like, no, that's my track. But yeah, man, Mos, resident in my top 5. And I'm just really intrigued to see where he's going to go, to be fair, with Mos. He again, a very, very creative person. And is there a 90s track you wish you could have featured on then? Or like what you'd be like, oh damn, I wish I could have jumped on that.
Let's see. You know, which I don't know. This was probably 2000. Ghostface had this song called Run. And it's just, he was just like, man, if it never, run. And the beat was like manic and crazy. And I was like, ah.
That's my...
But I've actually worked with Ghost on a couple of different obscure features, releases that he's done, and like outside producer shit. So yeah, I want to work more with Ghost.
Mate, imagine that. Yeah. Forget about it. So look at me listening to like Italian films. Forget about it. So when we're going into one thing I wanted to ask, because I never heard you talk about it, but your thoughts on UK music. Like, do you listen to any UK music or anything coming out of here?
I'm totally lost. I know the grime scene is killing it, and it has been for a while. And I'm not opposed. And when I'm out, I'm always like, what's that? Like I did a run. We did a tour here with I had Ezra Collective as my band.
Nice.
And the drummer Femi was like, oh, this guy started the grime scene. This is old cool. Like they were educating me on like the roots of it. And I know it's like a split between traditional hip hop heads and the set, but like I love a lot of the shit. I couldn't name all artists. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
you're liking it. Yeah. There's a guy out at the moment called Slow Tie, and his inflections, and it's almost like he's not rhyming. He's almost like, I'll be interested in what you thought of his patterns. So yeah, I would be interested in what you think of him. But he's blowing up right now. Like he's killing it at the moment in the UK.
Dope.
But so we have a few listener questions. Soon as I told people, they were like just flooding me on the DMs, like, you got asking this. So I shortened the shortlist to these things, right? So from Lee Can, who sent me like a huge list. First of all, have you overcome your fear of 13 yet? The number 13.
I actually embraced it. It's like my alias. It's the name of the band. He hit upon something by asking me that. So for those people who don't know that, the name of the band is called 13. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm asthmatic, and I contracted the lung disease at 13 months of age. So I would always hear my mom say to doctors who would ask, well, how long has he had asthma? And she would say, since he was 13 months old. And so the number just... yeah.
Perpetuated. Yeah. Wow. That's it's fascinating. He also asked, which I thought was quite an interesting question. Everyone kept talking on Twitter like, oh, we've not heard Monch and Nas. And then DJ Shadow dropped that track recently. Banger. He was asking, have you and Nas ever talked about the similarities between Stray Bullet and I Gave You Power?
So I worked on this song, the Master Pill song. Recently I sat with Nas and played him music from the new project. And he was blown away. He's loving it. And it's like, yo, this is cutting edge. But at the same time, it's time. Like, I think people are ready for this. He said, before you play the next song, did I ever tell you that when I put out the record, you know, I was talking to Preemo and I was like, yo, I got this idea. It's just going to be slamming, boom, 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 boom. And he says, I dropped the record. I'm like, yeah. This shit is banging. It came out dope. And he was like, I went on my media run to do my interviews, and every interviewer was like, you know, Pharoahe Monch, this is straight. He was like, what? Well, we were laughing about it. We actually talked about it years ago. He probably doesn't remember. But yeah, man, I mean, I think that shit is some real dope genius shit when people are striking upon similar ideas, especially of that ilk. You know what I'm saying? Because again, everybody in that era is rushing for content to be like, I gotta come up with, you know what I mean? Yeah.
But the interesting thing about them two tracks is they're very different. Like they are the same, but they're not. Like they're completely different. They're different. It's like I think it's your first verse on Queens. Fuck man, like that storyline. Yeah, there's a lot of different storylines that are tragic about the hood. But that storyline, fuck man, I felt that. Even the way you sing that end bit where you're like, the why bit is just like, yeah, man, heart-wrenching. And that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, you can have similar story, you can have similar substance, but it's the way you tell it. And Nas told it very differently to the way you and Prince Poe were going. But just very interesting that was very similar around the same time. What are the ones we got here? Right, okay, so we have... Patrick Bates says you're a big Coltrane fan.
Yes.
If you were a jazz instrument, which jazz instrument would you be and why?
Wow. Shit. because of him, I want to say sax, and I've thought about similar question to ask myself in a kind of a different way, but I would have to go with sax, because of what I've heard him play out of that damn thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, okay, I like it. And the last one I've got here, this is quite good. This is from Grindhouse Music. Just a little story before he asks. Monch is actually helping me learn to drive right now. Last week, his instructor said to him, emerge from traffic, and he said, don't be hesitant. And he was like, now every time I emerge from traffic, I just think, don't be hesitant, sound cracks the sediment, it's Everton with medicine for your whole town. And he's like, holy shit, Pharoahe's making me learn how to drive. So I thought you might want to be hearing that. And then he said, like, obviously you've produced absolute classics. Is there any producers on your bucket list that you would like to work with?
Simple. I've done a premiere chorus for OC, but we've never worked on anything. So that's it. I gotta get on a Preemo beat, and it's nothing to do. I just, at this point in my career and in his career, it's so much pressure on me. There's so much pressure on me.
Yeah,
it's like no, and I tell him that we talk.
Yeah.
Preemo talk for like 2 hours straight, like once he goes, but yeah, he doesn't realize who he is, and
that's a beautiful thing, though. In a way, that's a beautiful thing. Like to be that monumental in everyone's eyes and still be kind of like, man, I'm just doing my thing, like just expressing myself, like,
right.
You know, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So one last thing I have to ask you before you go, we have a playlist of, I know you like the Woo, everyone loves the Woo on the podcast, all the audience love the Woo. So we were talking in the pod and we were like, there's so many Woo tracks, there's such a volume of stuff from Woo. There's so many slept on Wu-Tang Clan bangers. So we made a playlist and we asked all our guests, what do you think is your like slept on Wu-Tang banger? Like, people need to respect that one a bit more.
All the bangers are coming. It's just so many. Like I don't have any obscure ones that are coming to my head. I'm trying to think of like an obscure genius record that I might be in love with.
Severe Punishment makes me think you should have been on that. Severe Punishment is a track where I just think Pharoahe was on that, had been killed it.
What a monumental group, man. Just thinking about the whole totality of, and then the solo. Wow.
Do you know what? I might leave you to that one. That one is a hard one. That was a hard one. That is a hard one. But yeah, okay, fair, man, fair. Well, Pharoahe, man, thank you so much for blessing us. New music coming 2020.
New music. Oh, definitely. New project. New album. 13. It's pretty sick, and that's all I'm gonna say, man. It's woo. Yeah, man.
If you're ever around, I know you're in Queens, but if you ever want to jump on the phone and talk us through that album, man, we are here for that.
Yes.
And then before you do go though, mate, to go bless other people in other avenues, what's the last great piece of music you heard? Could be old, could be new, just the last thing you heard where you're like, yeah.
Again, I went back and revisited one of my favorite albums, which is Headless Heroes of the Apocalypse, Eugene McDaniels, and just listened to the whole thing straight through, and was listening to Supermarket Blues on that album. Just lyrically and production-wise, again, it's something that sounds like The Large Professor made it with a SB 1200, and for it to be from the 70s, it's just insane. So if you're out there, it's online, you can stream it. Check out Supermarket Blues, Eugene McDaniels.
Yeah, man, defo. I'm on that. Well, thank you, Pharoahe, man. Seriously, much respect.
Appreciate you, man.
Keep doing your thing, and we're here for it, man. We're here for it. The love is real, man. The love is real. Peace, man. Peace. So there you have it. Pharoahe Monch on Crate 808. Yes, minds were blown and stories were told. So yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing that we got someone like Pharoahe to bless us. And, much love to the man because, he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to come on here and talk to us, but he did. And that's why he's an absolute legend. So guys, hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed Crate 808 generally. DJ Muggs was on, Mayhem Loren was on, Sky Zoo, Rodney P, Black Twang Ty, all the good peeps. We've got more and more people coming up to keep you 90s heads satisfied. So all it leaves me to do, man, is to just say to you all, please rate, review, share, tell everyone about this podcast. It really helps if you do go out there, YouTube, just subscribe and just like us. You know what I mean? Spotify, all that stuff. We're everywhere. Facebook, Insta. Go check us out. Crate808.com, got all the details on there. And yeah, man, just keep showing us love. Love the feedback. Everyone out there who's giving us love, mate, big up, brap, brap, brap. And yeah, to all the podcasts out there doing their thing, big up all yourselves. I usually shout them out on every podcast, but they know who they are. And Grindhouse Music, bro, thank you for doing the music on here. Lee Cam, thank you for doing what you do, mate. To the 808 crew, thank you for all the support. Make sure I'm not too nervous when I jump in with someone like Pharoahe Monch or DJ Muggs or Mayhem Loren or Open Mike Eagle or Skyzoo, who this is just ridiculous me even listing those names, really, isn't it? I mean, we're just guys out here trying to discuss 90s culture. So getting them on, yes, loving it. Watch out, we've got more debates coming up. We've got more and more interviews coming up. And if you're out there and you want to show some love, or if you just want to show some hate, we're here for all of it, man. So anyway, yes, big yourselves up, keep it 90s, and yeah, I shall catch you on the flip side. Peace.